So good to have Tom Chenault in the house.
Never been late in my
life. This is beautiful. Welcome to the show, everybody. My name is Dan McCormick. We're live on the Greatest Salesman podcast every Wednesday, 2 o'clock, Wisdom Wednesday. And this is episode number 24. It is something that we are just having a blast with as the ambassador to the Og Mandino Company. The opportunity to speak with the greatest salespeople in the world each and every week has just been a riveting experience for me. And I know it's going to be our first father-son combination ever in the history of 24 episodes. So if you're new to the podcast, go ahead and like the show, comment on the show, leave a review on the show. You can watch us and comment live as we're on Facebook and YouTube. There we are. There's Shay Irvin right there giving us some feedback as we get going. We're going to crank it up here, and we're going to have a great, great time. And if everybody is familiar or not familiar with the great Og Mandino, it was 52 years ago when this great little gem came out on the stages of Amway Corporation in 1968 when Rich DeVos said everybody should read this book. And of course, that was the start of this unbelievable thing called the Greatest Salesman Journey. It's so great to have you guys here today. And, Og had a special way of living life, and he had a special way of writing about life. And Tom, you and I have known each other now since I believe it was 2007 when I first came on your show, when my book came out called Lessons from Great Lives. And it's just an honor to have you both here. How are you guys doing?
So good. It is awesome to be here.
I've never been more excited to do a show in my life. You are like a mentor to me. You're like a father to me, Dan. And I just love you and your friends that you hang out with, the people like the likes of Jeff Roberti and Jeff Weisberg and Harris Williams. You just hang with the big dogs, and I'm in total awe of you. I've watched so many of your interviews, and we're happy to be number 24, and this thing rocks. And what you're doing, the legacy and the people, the habit finder, the people can get hold of the same tools that made you what you are and so many people what they can be. It's just unbelievable. And thank you for letting me be a part of this.
Well, it's great. Adrian, it's great to have you. When I was on your podcast, I want to say it was 6 or 8, 10 weeks ago.
Yep.
We got done. We talked a lot about the greatest salesman. You know, Og had a philosophy for living. You guys asked me some pretty deep questions that day. We went pretty deep. And I think that Tom was even a little shocked that I would go that deep because most humans don't go that deep and that personal. And it was very educational for me. But I thought, what an incredible thing if we had the greatest sales people in the world, Tom, bringing his son on the show. I've asked you guys to reread or revisit the Greatest Salesman podcast. And what I love to do on every episode, and I'll start with you, Adrian, I love to start off with asking people when they're in that chair you guys, Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, you have the longest running radio show in the history of network marketing. You've been in network marketing for, I can't remember how many years now, but I'm at 38. You're close to that, I think. And it's just an amazing thing that you do. We got people here from Scotland. We usually get people from Africa, Australia, Austria. And so on behalf of the time reference of what I like to do from a time value proposition, Adrian, what are 3 things that you think that have shaped your life growing up in the footsteps of your father and watching network marketing, being a part of it, and then moving into this incredible thing we'll talk about later called contact mapping?
All good. I'm just glad you didn't call it contact tracing. So
it has been.
Yeah, it has been. So, it's funny because I think that really interweaves my story of first experiencing the greatest salesman and kind of the story of my upbringing, which is that, one of the biggest gifts that I think I received from my dad was a very early on and ongoing gift of personal development. So he would, at a very young age, give me, this book, Norman Vincent Peale, Robert Kiyosaki, like all these books. And, I would be lying if I said that I poured over these books as an 11 and 12 and 13-year-old. You're kind of begrudgingly reading them. But half the time I would get summer jobs, or I was a big baseball card collector as a kid. And so I would, dad would give me a job, and half of it would be data entry, and half of it would be, he'd give us books as kids and say, you're on the clock, read this book on the clock. And I really appreciated that, because I think if he had just said, hey, here's a book, kid, read it, I never would have cracked it. But because it was like, okay, well, if you want to pay me to read a book, then I'll read a book. And so I read those books. And, even though I think in some ways I wasn't fully ready to receive them in the way that I am now as an adult, it was really fun, because I had not read this book in a long time. It was awesome going back to it with fresh eyes as an adult. It got in, it kind of got inside of me. And I think that I was able to avoid a lot of pitfalls just by having had some of these early principles and early lessons that came from these books, that came from Landmark Education, which was a big part of his life. Alcoholics Anonymous, again, a big part of his life. And he'll talk about these things. But, I was able to kind of on a second order receive a lot of wisdom as a young kid from him. And that shaped so much of my life.
Fantastic. So did you put all three in one answer, or no, because I take notes on this and I didn't write down very clear, but I wrote down number 1, personal development. I wasn't sure if you went a step further.
Yeah. So I think I kind of didn't answer the question that well. So I think personal development was a big one. Entrepreneurship was a second one. So, wow. He would kind of like plant seeds. So when I was in, I think, 4th grade or so, that was in 1994, was really when the eBay craze first took off, and everybody was doing, trying to figure out eBay. It was all the rage. People were buying stuff on there like crazy, but nobody really, most people didn't know how to sell stuff on there. And so he kind of encouraged me and helped me to set up, and I would go door to door with flyers, and I created a little eBay consignment business, and I would take people's stuff and sell it. I knew how to do that. I'd go take the pictures, I'd sell it for him on eBay, and I would go and fulfill the orders or box them up, and he would take them to the post office for me and ship the stuff, wherever, all over the country. And so, to have learned that at a young age, to talk to adults, to, follow through on your word, people are giving you stuff that has some value out of their garage. That was huge. So entrepreneurship was number 2. And, how to figure out stuff on your own was number 3.
Oh, I love it.
There was, in the early days after my parents divorced, there was a significant period of time where there were exactly 4 consumable items in my dad's apartment: a 50-pound bag of white rice, a fridge and freezer full of T-bone steaks, milk that was usually spoiled, and wheatgrass in flats that we would go and cut with scissors.
Well, I still don't know what's wrong with that.
What's wrong with that?
And so I had to learn how to figure out a lot of things. So I taught myself to cook. I taught myself to iron, to do laundry, and a whole host of other things. And I genuinely, I laugh about that, because he was very hopeless as a mom. He was much better as a dad. And when he had to be both, it was not so good. But I had to learn how to do that stuff. And I was, I think that really helped me later on in life, that I wasn't in, I didn't expect people to do stuff for me. I had to learn how to figure out stuff for myself. And most of life isn't that complicated if you just are willing to show up.
Tom, I have, Marianne, thank you very much. That's a beautiful thing to put up on the screen right there. We got people all over the world watching right now. It's great to have you, Tom. We haven't spent a lot of time in person together over the years. It's mostly been on phone and on video. And I wonder, when you think back on your career and how it started, Og had his thing. Today, I begin a new life, coming from that very interesting place in life. And I wonder, did you give any thought to the 3 things that you think have shaped your life?
The 3 things that I think have shaped my life is, number 1, I got things by being really nice to people. And I think having unbelievable charisma was certainly a secret weapon. In my early life, I didn't have any integrity or honesty to go with that. So I was a charismatic juvenile delinquent, which is a terrible combination. But charisma was probably one of them.
Wow, I love
the second one was insanely unbelievable work ethic. I have a work ethic that is really, really, it's just unbelievable. And the third thing that I think has really shaped my life is being really, really nice to people. And I have found that the nicer I am to people, the more I get things. And I've never lost that. So the three things that would define me today are the same things that defined me many years ago, to my detriment, which was I was very, very nice. I was very charismatic, which could be also called very manipulative. And the third one, I worked when you were sleeping, I was working. And as a result of that, I accomplished much early, but most of it ended up badly because my intentions were good, but my outcomes came up bad.
Very fascinating to hear both of you say that. And I think that one of the things that I was so fascinated with when I was on your show is the fact that I could see the son and the father, and you could see, Stephen Covey says when you're raising your kids, you're actually raising your grandkids.
Yeah.
And when you're teaching those things. So I'm confident that Adrian not only received the wisdom, but he's now sharing the wisdom. He's teaching that. Would you find that that is something that is just intuitive in you now, Adrian, because you were taught those principles at a young age?
What's so funny, the thing that stuck out the most to me in the book, in part because I don't know if this is exactly where it came from for you, Dad, but it's something that is so ingrained in me. My dad would say over and over again to us as kids, catch people doing things right. And he was really good at that. Like that, of everything that I think you did well as a dad, and it's fun. I don't know that I've ever said that to you, but I think that is truly like a hallmark of what made you a great dad. And so I'm reading through, and I had marked this because it was I was wanting to be able to reference to my favorite, and it said, I will dig for reasons to applaud. Never will I scratch for excuses to gossip. When I'm tempted to criticize, I will bite my tongue. And when I am moved to praise, I will shout it from the roofs. And I really try to do that with our kids. I don't always succeed, but I think that's such an important value. And it's something that helped me so much in my upbringing. And so it is cool to kind of think about that generationally.
For reference, I don't have it handy here right now. Tell me what scroll you're in on that.
That's scroll 2.
Yes. They would love in my heart. I re-listened to Ogg's book. I like to listen to Ogg's voice do this because there's such genuine authenticity to that. And as I was re-listening today, I heard those words, and that's just awesome stuff. So Tom, it's interesting because I did something similar. I actually bought copies. Over my shoulder here, you can actually see my Og Mandino wall there. And I actually bought copies for all of my kids. I was at the Denver bookstore, the big mega store. I can't remember the name of it right at the top.
Tattered Cover bookstore.
And I saw these little copies, and it's like this right here. And I literally bought that little copy for each of my kids, if I could get it the right direction here, the 10 Ancient Scrolls. And we literally, when they were like you, Adrian, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, whatever, we were reading these things, and they were like, Dad, really, we're going to read another scroll. Dad, we're going to read the 7 Habits again. I mean, we're going through these things. So Tom, that is a brilliant thing. I wonder, where did it start for you? What was the turning point?
When I got sober 32 years ago, Adrian was 4.
Wow.
His sister was born 2 weeks after I got sober. And I knew I was really smart, dangerously smart, that I could get away with murder if I wanted to. And I knew all those other things. And I knew that there was no way in the world that I wanted my kids, when faced with that fork in the road, take the easy path. And I've always been a talk show host. And Adrian's sister, when she was growing up, I poured these books on these kids because I wanted them to see the high road the whole way. And Courtney, literally, I had a 3-hour-a-day radio job where I was on the air literally 3 hours every morning during drive time talking about stocks on the stock market like a football player.
Yeah.
And I hired Courtney as my personal assistant, and all she would do is come in and read those books like all day long. And the reason I did that was because I didn't understand. I'd read the books, and the books made me a tremendous salesman, but I didn't have the integrity and the authenticity and the vulnerability piece. And when I finally got to Og Mandino and a couple of other books just exactly like that, I got the whole picture and what it was like to be a good human being. And I realized I'd really messed up 37 years of my life, but by God, I wasn't going to let my kids do the same thing to their life just because they happen to be slick. And it worked out. Both of them, actually all three kids, have got unbelievable integrity now, of which I am most proud. And they can still sell ice to an Eskimo, but they don't ever do it to anybody else's detriment. And I love that.
Wow, that is so well said. And for those that are just joining us on the show today, whether it's 6 weeks from now, 6 months from now, you're tune in on the Greatest Salesman podcast, whether you're on Spotify or iHeart or wherever you pick it up. Maybe you go to thegreatestsalesman.com and you pick up any or all of the shows. This is the kind of wisdom that is so personal and near and dear. And I believe really what it comes down to is it's relatable. You know, it's relatable because you got a real story. I mean, Og says on the website, I lived through 10 years of a living hell, going, waking up to that bottle and trying to face those alcoholism challenges, losing the wife and the daughter and all of those things. It was a living hell is what he said. And imagine, Tom, you coming on here. And so when you found that, you're on the radio, you're doing those kinds of things. When did network marketing creep into your life?
Last house on the block. I'd been a very successful airplane or restaurant guy.
Okay.
Then I drank myself out of that and ended up a very drunken but successful airplane salesman, which is the worst combination in the world.
Yeah.
And then, but I didn't want to be in the airplane because someone could get killed. So I would be on the ground drinking and selling those airplanes, and I was good at it. But then I became a stockbroker and really made a lot of money. And in 1988, my income was about $800,000. And I got 2 DUIs and 2 disturbing the pieces in 1 month. And so that was bad news for everybody. And so I got sober, and the sponsor that helped me get sober said, "You've got to stop doing what got you drunk in the first place." And I thought he meant my job. So I quit my brokerage job, and I was basically unemployable. I weighed about 100 pounds more than I weigh right now. I was purple. No one wanted to take a shot at me. I was a hand grenade with a pin pulled, and it was no chance. And so I tried to get a job from my restaurant background at a place called Dandelion. I'll never forget it. And they told me that the uniforms wouldn't fit. They didn't have a uniform big enough. And so then I saw an ad in the paper to work on the railroad as a waiter. And I went down for that job, and they told me I wouldn't fit in the aisles. So Taco Bell was the next stop. I came home one day, opened up a newspaper. God is so great. Out fell a slip of paper. It said, "Unlimited income opportunity, no credit check, no background check." I said, "I am home. I have found my calling." I called the guy up. I had said, because I'm just a arrogant, ego-driven stockbroker. There's no way I'm doing multi-level marketing. I'm everybody's prospect for years and no chance. And I said, "Is it true?" He goes, "What?" I said, "Unlimited income opportunity." He said, "Yeah." I said, "No credit check?" "No." "No background check?" "No." "When can I start?" "Right now." I said, "I'm in." And that's how it started. It was the last house on the block. There was no option for failure. I had the second gift of desperation in my life. My first gift of desperation was my sobriety. Second one was I had to feed that family, that little 4-year-old named Adrian and his little sister, and they were coming off of an $800,000 a year lifestyle. So I had to make hay while the sun shined. And I just jumped in with both feet, screwed it up so big time. It was unbelievable until I didn't. And the rest is history.
Wow. I just love it. I think that's what Lorraine is saying here. She was in finance. That helped her relate to you. And Sharon's on the screen talking about how you're helping to fulfill a need. The last guy in the house, it's interesting because I wouldn't have been at the top of anybody's list. There's no way. I mean, I'm a 19-year-old broken guy. No self-esteem, self-image, self-worth, net worth, none of it, right? Isn't that the case with so many people in network marketing? When we finally find our path, we find someone that's willing to teach us the principles, and we say, "Hey, why not me? Why not now?" And Adrian, I'm curious for you, as you've moved through the world of network marketing and into the world of business with contact mapping and assisting network marketing and small business people and becoming the greatest salesperson in the world for that. I mean, I would look at Harvey McKay as maybe you put me in touch with Harvey a few months ago. Tom, and I hadn't talked to him in a few years, and he might be the living most, he's got every contact written down, tagged down since he was 10. But you guys have a system for that. So how did it all evolve for you, Adrian?
Yeah, Harvey's a legend, man. That guy's just amazing. So I grew up again, kind of watching as my dad figured these things out, and he was always, he really understood the power of his contacts from before I was born. In fact, a funny little side story: when we created contact mapping, one of my uncles is my godfather and was one of Dad's business partners in the stock brokerage business way back in the day. And so I call him and I'm telling him about what we're getting ready to do with contact mapping. And he goes, "You realize that your dad taught me how to do that in 1978. And we had a system where we would have a stack of legal pads and we would take notes on every single client call. And then we had a system of note cards. And so Dan would call on the phone. We'd pull Dan's card out, hand it to the secretary, and it would say, 'Last call with Dan is on pad 300, page 14, line 23. And she would go grab that notepad, run it to you, and you'd go, "Dan, how are the kids?" And you'd ask them everything by name and all the specifics. And they had this crazy system in the 70s. And so then it was ACT, and then it was, he's done this forever. And I watched him do that. And I watched just how devoted people were to him because of how devoted and how well he remembered them. And, that again, kind of subconsciously got into my bloodstream. So I went into the corporate world. For a host of reasons, I'm the oldest kid, big shoes to fill, very tightly wound, as my dad likes to tell me. And so I was, network marketing just was a little too woo-woo for me. And at the time, that was my story that I told myself. So I went off into corporate finance, went off into the business world, but to a huge degree, far more than I realized or appreciated at the time, what made me unique in my corporate career was my ability to build relationships with people. So I worked for a big technology company. I was in finance. I was, most of my friends were, spreadsheet slingers and hid behind the computer. And I would walk across the building and go talk to the VP of sales and say, "Hey, we got to figure this thing out." And surprise, surprise, right? Things move a lot faster when you build relationships with people and you're willing to go look them face to face. And so that led one thing to another. And I ended up going to the international part of the business and becoming this sort of bridge builder all through the business. That was kind of how I became known in that company. And we had this kind of moment of realization that that our paths had, seemingly been completely different, but there was this parallel of the way that we prioritize relationships, that we connected people together, and that there was just huge value in that. And so about 3 years ago, it was kind of time for me to step away from that. I had always wanted to start a company and yet never had really known what that was going to look like or what the idea was that really lit me on fire. And there was this kind of lightning bolt sort of moment where we realized that contact mapping was the idea. And actually it's almost exactly the 4-year anniversary of that. So December 24th, 2016, Christmas Eve, I'm in the shower and I had this download from God and I went, "Oh my gosh." And it was clear as day. And I jumped out, I dried off. I was staying at my mom's. I sent him this email, subject line, "What if contact mapping is the idea?" Because contact mapping was his philosophy already. And the idea was born that day, and it just immediately took on a life of its own.
Wow. Well, let's put it up on the screen. If we could get the address for people to contact you and find out more about contact mapping. And I mean, there you go right there at contactmapping.com/greatest salesman. If you're new to the Greatest Salesman, everybody, this is what we do each and every week, 2:00, Wisdom Wednesday. We bring on the greatest salespeople in the world, whether they're selling, how to stay in contact, how to be mindful of all those contacts instead of searching for those ideas and remind me who you are and where did we meet and all that kind of stuff. You got all that kind of stuff solved right there at contactmapping.com/greatest salesman. Tom, you must be really proud of your son. You mentioned you're proud of all your kids. It's an awesome thing to think about. I know that I maybe don't pride myself in being the most organized contact mapping person. But what I do pride myself in is staying in contact. All the contacts in the world aren't going to do you any good unless you use the contacts. So what I love to do, Tom, is I just will be driving down the road and I'll just hit someone's name and I'll just call them out of the blue. I love staying in touch. Talk about how do you use this in your life? I mean, you're on stage last week in front of tens of thousands of people at one event. You're on your show yesterday with Marianne Niehaus. I watched you guys do that. You're talking to thousands of people every week. How do you do it?
Well, I used to really have a problem doing it. And I went from the yellow pads to note cards, like a little Dewey Decimal System. And when I was in the restaurant business, we had 75,000 people a month going through this restaurant. We were the most popular restaurant in Littleton, Colorado. The food sucked. And we were right next door to a mortuary. So the clientele was like 100. So they would just come there, have mashed potatoes, and then like die. But it was so amazing because what we would do is the family would walk in the door and we would grab the person least likely to get a compliment in that party. And we'd take a look at them, see what they liked most about themselves, compliment them on it, like the grandmother with the gray hair and all the hairspray and the earrings. And then we would jot it down. And next Sunday, they'd come back in either with or without the grandmother. And we'd say, well, what about Grandma Rosie? And I just love those earrings last week. And I will tell you, those people came back forever for that lousy food because they were remembered. And I learned that. So then I took that list to the airplane business. Then I took the airplane list to the stock business. And then I took all those lists to the network marketing business. I've got friends. No one has connections that like mine. No one. I'll take Harvey McKay on any day of the week. I'll take Bob Bodine on any day of the week. Richard Brooke. But here's what I'm telling you. What you said was pretty profound. Nobody follows up. I'm really good at interviewing people, documenting them. But until Adrian built that app, I thought I was the king of follow-up, and I suck. And he has changed my life because everybody's on a rotation. And no one knows they're on a rotation. If they would look at if they had literally had anywhere near the systems I've got, they would look at their phone and realize almost to the day that every 3 months, Tom Chenault calls to say, or texts to say hi. He never tries to sell anything. He just says, I love you, or whatever it is I said to him. And all that touch does.
I got
there
proof.
You go.
I got proof of that.
There you go. Yeah, and all of a sudden you go, well, that dirty dog doesn't love me. He's on I'm on a rotation. But none of it's like autoresponders or any of that horse manure that your company's got or all those other stuff that just is, it's a trick. It's not a trick. We don't have any preset stuff. We want it to come from your heart because everything is fire your brain, hire your heart.
Wow. And somebody write that in the column box where we can put that up on the screen. Fire your brain, follow your heart. I love it.
And that's, you're smarter than me. Dan, Adrian's clearly smarter than me. Everybody's smarter than me. But you know what? I'm 69 years old. It's been 50 years since anybody looked at my report card. We don't even like smart people. We like people like this. And that's what you can't outlove me. There's no way. And that's my claim to fame.
Wow. You can't outlove me. That is something to behold. I love that. I hope you guys are having as much fun as I am, because if anybody's new to the Greatest Salesman podcast, we want to welcome you. And we know that we talk about the Greatest Salesman a lot because truly, I think you guys, your heart, you can feel your heart for people. And Og says, I will greet this day with love in my heart. Yes, that's scroll number 2. Those are the words that I kind of wake up to every morning for 38 years now, because I didn't have it. I didn't know what it was like to love and to care and to be kind and to be interested. And you're living that with building in something that is really powerful. I kind of have coined a phrase between some of the people on the show and some that have not been on the show yet. And that is that money loves speed, success loves speed, but speed loves simplicity. And so what you've done, you've built a system to allow more money to come faster, because success will come faster if you keep it simple on the contact mapping. And we're in the business of people and sharing in the world of network marketing products and services that change lives. And so really love how you guys have shared that. If there's anybody listening for the very first time and you're not familiar with the Og Mandino company like Adrian and Tom are, you know that we give away a free assessment. And that assessment is to help you align your life with the principles that Og is teaching. He had a life of a living hell for 10 years, and all of a sudden he gets a job with W. Clement Stone. All of a sudden he gets to exercise these wonderful things that he did as a kid, and that's right. And right in such a way that it is a philosophical approach to life that is truly the essence of life, serving other people. So if you'll go to habitfinder.com/podcast, we can help you align your habits. We now have over 150,000 network marketers that have taken this assessment. It's free. It's got a value of over $100, and you can do that and literally learn your results in a matter of minutes. And hopefully you will. I know I have. I reread the book all the time, Adrian. You said you went back and reread it. You said it was kind of an eye-opener.
Yeah.
Walk us through that, because it's usually, okay, someone read this 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. I had guests on a couple of weeks ago that read it in 1976. It was a life changer. They were my guests on the show because they looked at me and they said, Dan, we're going to be on your show because we trust you.
There you go.
It's a great compliment. So what did you notice as you went back and reread, Adrian?
Yeah. So two things. One is, the story itself, like, I think I appreciated the story in a way that I didn't as a younger person. And so that was really, just to feel this sense of like the ancient grounding of these principles, because they're, like Og didn't invent this stuff. He distilled it and he pulled it together because these things are timeless, and you can feel that in the story, and you can feel that in the scrolls. And I think that as you get older, you realize the benefit and the value of having these little touchstones to come back to, whether it's Proverbs, whether it's these scrolls and these sayings and these things that you can catch yourself in a moment when you're you're at that fork in the road where it's like, I could go back to some program or to some way of doing things that I've done that 100 times. I know it doesn't serve me. I'm pissed off, or I'm whatever I've got going on in this moment, and I could go here, but I will greet the day with love in my heart. Or I can catch myself, and it's simple enough that you can hold those things in memory and be able to reground yourself and take a different action. And that's, I think, the biggest thing that I'm carrying forward and really cherishing about this. And I went through it over the last couple of weeks in preparation for the show, but now I want to go back and really go and spend more time with each scroll and really kind of get that ingrained into my subconscious.
Wow. I love it when people share. And we got Robert Hollis chiming in here.
Robert Hollis.
One of the great.
Wow. Love that guy.
I mean, if we can put Kathy Moulter's comment up on the screen for a minute, I just want to say that, here it's interesting when something's been around a long time, we kind of lose the freshness and the enthusiasm for it. But it's like Og says, he lists his favorite 10 books in one of the original Greatest Success in the World books. That's the journalized version, if you will, of The Greatest Secret. It's nothing more than that. But we got the great Ron Henley on the show right now. But I think what's great is that Kathy brings it to life to say, hey, when you first discover something, it doesn't matter if it's thousands of years old or a couple of days old. It's new, it's exciting, it's fresh. It's like, wow, where have I been? And so each and every day I get to wake up with those words. Tom, when do you think you first read the book? And what I know you mentioned a lot of books. Was there anything you think of when you think about Og Mandino and the Scrolls?
Yeah, I think it's one of the most timeless books ever written. And I think I first read it in the early 80s. I'm not sure about that.
Yeah.
I didn't quit drink until 88, so those might have been blackout years. I went on this because I was trying to be sober without quitting drinking. I went on this real tangent of personal development on top of the alcohol, which was really a serious error. I thought I could heal a spiritual problem with a physical. Yeah, it was just dumb. And as a result of that, so I won't start counting anything until post 1988, Dan. Yeah. And what happened to me, and I've just been thinking about what you said about trust, because you're in another book with Larry and Taylor that I read, that also when we were getting ready to do this, and what you just said about trust. And when I read your book with those guys, I realized that you guys think from a different place than most people in the network marketing space. Because people out in the network marketing space are all thinking that the next training is going to solve their problem.
Right.
Instead of looking in the mirror and looking at what, you said that something really important a couple seconds ago about trust. And what we have found at contactmapping.com is that we believe that people really, to get anything even moving in any kind of conversation, you have to have the BLTs, which that means people have to belong in your tribe. They have to know you love them. They have to know they can trust you, and they have to know they're safe with you. And if those four things happen, if you called me on the phone right now, Dan McCormick, and said, I need $500, I wouldn't say what for. I'd say, where do I send the money? Because you and I have a relationship with these BLTs where nothing matters. I'm just going to do it. Yeah. And all of a sudden I started looking in that deeper, and Adrian and we all actually really had a really deep dive conversation, because what is missing in network marketing isn't more skills. It's more love. It's more relatedness. It's more belonging. It's more trust. It's more integrity. And what I love about Ogmandino in the book and everything you're doing is it emphasizes it without being so blatantly obvious like I did right there. It emphasizes that for you to win the day in business, network marketing or anything else, you have to become a better human being. And that's why I love you, and that's why I love that book.
Man, I got a text from you like 2 weeks ago out of the blue, and it just said, I love you. And I just wonder how many people feel comfortable man to man saying, I love you. Philia, brotherly love. We love each other because we respect each other. We share the journey together. We share the interest in the well-being of others together, which is why you do your show every week. It's why you show up every day and lead thousands and thousands of people. It's really an awesome thing. But you said something here that I really want to hone in on, because if all of our listeners today, man, we have some powerhouse people watching and listening right now. You said you tried to be sober without quitting drinking.
Yeah.
I wonder if everybody caught that. I wonder if a lot of people are trying to be at the top of the compensation plan without trying to be the person that gets to the top of the compensation plan. That's I said on your show that this life for me is a time to prepare to meet God. It's work. This life is work. At 5 a.m., I'm sitting on my couch. I got my journals, my reading material every morning at 5 a.m. It's work, but it's a joy in the journey. So I love that. Speak a little bit to that. I've never heard anybody say that. I tried to be sober without quit drinking.
I'll never forget a guy. I got 90 days of sobriety. I'm a stockbroker. I'm arrogant. I'm still just not a good person at 90 days sober. And I really thought I'd skin the cat. And this guy's name was Ray Hayworth. He was a homeless guy that I chose to be my sponsor because I could just see so much of him and me. And at 90 days, he looked at me and says, the work's just starting. I go, why is that? And he goes, because the alcohol is only a symptom. And I go, what? Because I thought I'd whipped it. But I hadn't whipped it. I had not even, all I'd done is gotten the alcohol out of there. The train wreck called Tom Chenault was still just absolutely rampant, but there wasn't the alcohol to shroud it anymore. And you said something really important a second ago. You said men saying they love you to other men, or men saying they love you to women. Because all I ever say to people now is I love you. And it's so funny how many people that hooks, but they're hooked because they don't think I mean it, because of somebody in their past that was full of shit the way they tell people they love them and show people that they love them. And it is so present for them. When I say I love you, it actually hurts them when I say it, which is good for me because I can dig into that and figure out how I can show people that people do actually have unconditional love with no agenda, which is my job on this planet. I don't look at people as leads. I don't look at them as leads at all. I look at them as human beings that maybe if I know a little bit about them, I can drop them off better than they were than when they met me. That's my job on this planet. And that's it, end of story. And the thing about contact mapping, if I ever change my name, which might happen one of these days because of the witness protection program, it will not be Thomas Virgil Chenault anymore. I am going to change my name to Better Call. Because I want to be known as Better Call Chenault. Because that's it. That's all it is. Because I know somebody that's going to solve what's going on in your life. It's probably going to have something to do with alcohol and drugs. It's going to have something to do with business. It's going to have something to do with the lawnmower repairman in my town. Because I tell you what, I know everybody. I have them all mapped. I have good relationships with them. They can trust me. I can trust them. I make the world a better place, whether I can make a penny on it or not. And I love that about me.
Wow. I love that about you, that you said yes to coming on with your son. And for those that are watching and listening, maybe I got my cardstock scroll up right here. I will greet this day with love in my heart. Boy, I mean, these words echo my soul every morning, but it's one to echo. It's another to live like you're living and share it and just truly believe in that philia, that brotherly love, that just you care. You have that incredible instinct to want to lift. You know, there's a law in the world. It's the law of lift. If we all would just be cognizant of the law of lift every day, it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. So, guys, we could talk for hours. I feel like there's a lot more to talk about, but here's what I love to close with. Adrian, I'm looking at your three things here, and I'm looking at our listener, our viewers today, their comments today. There's people listening, you know, at the late hours of the night in Scotland. There's people that'll be listening in Africa and Austria, all over the world at any time. They'll come in later to hear it. And yet I want to make sure they didn't miss your first three things, and then we'll come to Tom's in closing. You said personal development. You said entrepreneurship, which is great. It's an amazing thing. But then you said how to figure out stuff on your own. Man, I think Tom said something earlier that, you know, we don't lack for training. We lack for doing, you know. We'll create better systems and help people be better along the way. But maybe in closing, for those that came in late to the show, I ask everybody at the top of the show the three things that shape your life or each and every day of your life. How does it shape your life today, those three things?
Yeah. I think that having this sense of resourcefulness, you know, Tony Robbins has a quote that we have resources all around us. No one can say I don't have the resources. That's not true. What we lack is resourcefulness. And that has been the number one lesson that I get taught over and over and over again, trying to, you know, give birth to this movement that we're calling contact mapping, which is, you know, the most rewarding and the most challenging thing I've ever done, because you just have no one. It's like being a parent or, you know, any of these big things in life, right? Everyone's like, no, it's really, really hard. Like, it's going to be the hardest thing you've ever done. You're going to like want to quit at certain times and all this stuff. And you're like, oh yeah, totally. Like, that sounds really glamorous. And then you like go through it and you're like, oh, okay, that's what they meant. And so having that sense of grit and that sense of resourcefulness and that refusal to give up and just say, I'm going to go and figure it out. And I'm going to find people to come on this journey with me that will have those same principles and those same values. That is, I think, one of the most valuable things that you can cultivate in yourself and that you can look for in others. Because if you're resourceful, you can get pretty much anything done.
Wow. You guys, this is so fun. It's so rich. You know, before we went live today, Tom says, hey, by the way, how long is this going to be? And I said, Tom, it's going to go as long as you want to talk. So, Tom, I love your three things. No one's ever said charisma before. It's really a fascinating word. When you think about, you know, in one of my other classes, I call it the Mastermind Training Circle that I do for my team every Saturday on Facebook. And I always like to say on the third Saturday of every month that the art of recruiting and promotion is where the wealthiest people are found in network marketing. Obviously, if you build the better systems for recruiting and selling, you're going to do some great things. But the charisma in the world for the people that do that, the people in your circle, the people that are watching today, there's some very, very charismatic, amazing people. But insane work ethic, the joy in the journey just comes out of you because of what you love to do. And then finally, being nice to others. So any comment you would have in closing to those things, or what you would say to the audience today that maybe hasn't found everything working in harmony just yet?
So you have to ask yourself, what's a 69-year-old guy doing on a show like this? That's what you have to ask yourself. And the three things that I want to talk about aren't the three things that from the dinosaur ages of me that made me. The three things that guide me today, I would say that today my passion in life is helping people off alcohol and drugs. I would say that my job is network marketing and my legacy is contact mapping. And all three of those things tied together dragged this guy. I was on my horse and working this morning at 5 a.m. And I will work till I drop tonight. If you want to call it work, I call it living till I drop tonight, because this isn't what I do. It's who I am. And all of you, find something that feels like that to you. Because I'm telling you what, you do that, you never work another day in your life, man. I just get up every day. I'm relevant. You know, every one of my friends, 65 years old, they're playing golf. They got all this money. They're miserable. They're fat. They're drunk, doing all that crud. And here I am just sitting out here, just more relevant than ever before because of one thing, my Rolodex. I know people, and somebody always wants to know people I know. So they're calling on the phone to see if they can pick my pocket. And I love that. So God, I'm just telling you, God's so great. And I can't thank you enough for letting me be on this show. And if you know anybody that's got problems with alcohol and drugs, I'm your guy. If you got somebody that needs some hope in their life because they're just so beat down, I'm your guy. Wow. And I'm not trying to sell anything. Everything I'm doing, I'm giving away because it comes back tenfold. That's my story. I'm sticking to it.
Wow. It's been rich. It's been deep. It's been genuine. It's been authentic. It's been fun. I really enjoyed the fun factor of having you on the show here today. Amazing amount of people that I don't know. So they must be people that you know.
Can I answer one question for people that you wonder why I got up from my desk, lifted my desk up like this, stood back? No, because my face looked like E.T. I practically had to go out this window right here to get my face the same size as you two. That's the truth. How funny is that?
Oh my goodness.
All I saw was this pancake on the screen. So I'm like literally ready to jump out the window. So finally I got myself back in perspective. So yeah, that's what that was for.
Love it. Love it. You guys are great. God bless everybody. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. Have the greatest day of your life. This has been episode number 24 on the Greatest Salesman podcast. On behalf of Adrian Chenault, his father, Tom Chenault, the greatest salespeople in the world today, contactmapping.com/greatest salesman. Did I get that right, Adrian? There it is right there.
Nailed it.
You can reach out to those guys, get a free version of that, and be on your way. It's great to hear so many people say that they need to reread the book like you did, Adrian. And hopefully people will definitely make this a gift for the season that could change your life forever. I'm Dan McCormick. They're the Chenaults. Have the greatest day of your life, and bye for now.
We had fun. Thank you very much.
Too much fun.